Ready? Okay. I'd like to call to order the work session meeting for January 4th, 2022. Mr. Berardi, would you please say the pledge?
So good evening, everyone, and good evening, Lower Moreland Township School District community. My name is Dr. Scott Davidheiser, Superintendent of Schools, and thank you for attending this evening's meeting. I would like to remind our board and members of the public that this meeting is being live streamed on our district YouTube channel and that a recording of the meeting will be posted on our school board website within 48 hours following this meeting. I would like to welcome our board members and members of the public joining us this evening. To our board members, please be reminded that for sound purposes, you must turn on your microphone by tapping the touch pad and speak directly into the microphone in order for the sound to be audible, not only for the in-person community members here this evening, but also for anyone listening to the live stream. After speaking, please also mute your microphone once again by touching the touchpad. I do want to announce that the board did meet in executive sessions. That's plural, executive sessions, prior to and after the December 21st public meeting, and again last evening to discuss personnel and legal matters. Ms. Mayfield, would you please take the roll call of the board?
Ms. Baker?
Present.
Mr. Berardi?
Present.
Dr. Butler?
Present.
Ms. Cannon?
Here.
Dr. Cohen?
Present.
Mr. Geiger?
Present.
Dr. Lee?
Present.
Mrs. Natter?
Present.
Mr. Steinberg? Dr. Davidheiser, everyone is present.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield. I'll take the roll call of the cabinet members and administrators who are also participating here this evening. Mrs. Galdo?
Present.
Mrs. Drennan?
Present.
Mr. McGuinn? Mr. McGuinn is absent. Mr. Giordano?
Here.
Dr. Hilt?
Here.
Mr. Miles? Mr. Miles is present. Ms. Dilks? Ms. Dilks is absent. Mr. Cole? Mr. Cole is present. Thank you. So we're going to begin our evening tonight, as we have for many, many months, with Mr. Jamie Lynch from Dewey Engineering here with us this evening to give us an update on the high school project. And if you've had an opportunity in the daylight hours to drive by, there's been significant things happening there, some of which we're starting to see some foundation work go up, and Jamie's going to share much about that.
How's that? A little better? Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Davidheiser. Members of the board, member of the public of Lower Moreland Township School District, and yes, it is good to see verticality on the building site. If you've driven by, not only you've seen the retaining wall, which we've talked about before, but you see the first several concrete foundation wall panels vertical, and you see a small crane sitting in the middle of the site. So that is certainly good to see. This is a drone shot from late in December of the entire site. Looks like something out of a Richard Scarry book for children, where there's just things happening everywhere, which warms my heart on a cold winter night. So our construction staging is in over to the right. In the foreground on Red Lion, you see, maybe you won't appreciate it like I do, beautiful stormwater detention basins that have matting on them, and they're stabilized. That's a technical term. So this is a sight for sore eyes as we get out of the ground, so that's wonderful to see. Hopefully you're very fond of what you're seeing in the retaining walls that'll be in front of the new high school. They're very attractive. The design team did a great job with them. And then kind of in the background left, you see our building pad, which is the lower level of the new high school. And you see a little gray line, sorry I didn't bring my pointer today, of the first several foundation concrete placements that have been placed to date. So we are rolling, and all credit goes as I always do, to the superintendent, who gave us great weather in November, and then he showed off a little bit in December with more good weather. And I don't know about the ridiculousness yesterday, because if yesterday was a snow day, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Okay, if we go to the next slide. Oh, I can do that? Thank you. I think I can do that. Thank you very much. A little closer detail. Our building pad has 18 inches of recycled concrete placed on it. This really stabilizes the site and the building pad for winter construction. On the left, you start to see reinforcing cages go together for footings and piers for the building. And stormwater pipe on the site is largely complete on the side of the existing building. So our new stormwater system is tied in. Our existing sanitary system for this building has been relocated, so it's out of the building footprint. A good amount of underground work on the driveway side of the new building has been completed here in December. If we move ahead, that's what I like to see, concrete trucks filling trenches with concrete on 50-degree days in December. This work has gone well. Also a credit to the township and their inspection forces who have been out there each and every day with us in order to keep up with what Borough has been doing. So we're down there in areas C and E. You'll see those delineated in the monthly reports that we provide that have, a little bit more detail in the floor plans for the building, so we're moving right along. There's that retaining wall, that segmental retaining wall with the baffles in the stormwater basin in front. Don't worry, those black baffles are only temporary. They disappear at the end of the project. That's an erosion and sediment control measure that keeps sediment-laden stormwater from going into the township stormwater system. But those retaining walls on the front of the site are complete. There's one more back by our staging area that's about to be constructed, and they've been going together nicely. We also have David Blackmore and Associates, who's a third-party materials testing firm who's on the site on your behalf. They're under contract with the district to provide third-party testing of the contractor's work. So what that means is he tests the concrete, breaks the cylinders, looks at the rebar, checks the soil, checks the structural steel, checks levelness on floors. So it's a technical service that is under contract with you, the district, in order to provide quality control. I mentioned the sanitary line being installed, and we've worked with the township to complete their inspections to accept that work, so that's a good thing. And I mentioned Lower Moreland's code enforcement officer has been making regular visits to the site. So we're off and running from a quality control standpoint. A lot of utility work. You may have seen bucket trucks out on Red Lion at some point. That's the new power service that PICO has been providing to the site. There are actually two power services, one to reserve Valley Center Park and the lights that are on over the synthetic field tonight. The other will be our permanent power feed to the building. And in the middle picture, you can see the deep sanitary installation that picks up the existing high school and takes it down to Red Line Road. That was completed in an off-hour scenario this month to get it all tied in without any interruption to the school day. So these items are going well. Just because we really like the work that was done, the sediment traps, here they are again. There are 4 basins that run along Red Lion. In the foreground is the largest of those basins, and then they get smaller as you go down the hill. The last basin right at Valley Center Park, thank you very much, there's my pointer, I can do it without my hands, is actually the Valley Center Park basin that we're upgrading as a part of the construction. So these basins will look as they do for the lion's share of construction, and then at the very end of the job, we have to convert them to formal stormwater basins. So we're holding sediment at stormwater now. When everything is done and grass is across the entire property, they simply become above grade stormwater basins. So the baffles go away, and basically they're mowable basins. We've been moving a lot of soil. If you've seen dump trucks running on Red Line and Township roads, on the left-hand side is a stockpile that's been created as planned over at the Murray Avenue site. This soil is simply stored for after Murray Avenue is demolished. This soil goes in place of the building foundation and puts that site back to grade so that we'll have grass growing, et cetera, there. So we had a planned quantity that came out of your building pad, went across the street, and you may say, hey, there's hay all over it. Well, we have to stabilize that in accordance with the county requirements. So springtime comes, we should see germination and grass grow on that field. We should have a green hill over there for the balance of construction. On the right is an opportunity that we took that was really mandated by the NPDS permit delay process, and what you're seeing is a pile of soil sitting on the property of the Academy of the New Church. I was approached during design by the Academy of the New Church asking if soil would be available from our site, because there is an intent to build more athletic fields on that site someday, no time soon. And when we had more soils that had to be excavated as a result of the changes in the NPDS permit, we took a very quick opportunity to get a soil storage permit from the Conservation District, which is a very quick process. They granted the permit, and in addition, I begged, pleaded, and borrowed really for us to be able to truck the soil from your site directly across the property line onto the Academy of the New Church site without putting it in triaxles and running around Buck Road and running through their site and down. And that was granted by the Conservation District. And roughly 6,500 yards of soil are now stored over on that site for their reuse. And I'll get to it in a moment, but it's saved on the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars for the school district. So this was a big win. We're very grateful to the Academy of the New Church and to the Conservation District and to really Blair Contracting, who did this work in a very short period of time. And here again, it's stabilized with hay. We should be able to grow grass on it in the spring, and it's a win-win for all. So I promised you last month when I was here update on the costs associated with the extended permit and the delay in starting. And I have to do this very simply and straightforward for you, especially for your new board members who haven't been with the project for the past 12 months. But this was the best way I can do it, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. On this slide in yellow is the area of the Phase 1 work, which you'll recognize as the new driveway, new parking lot, and some utilities that we did over the summer. We were given the okay by the Conservation District, even without the permit, to do that work. It was necessary for school district operations, and I know I've stood before you and explained how we did that work. Then the permit was received, and the permit contained design changes mandated by the permitting process. It increased stormwater pipe in length and size, tie-in locations. It increased the amount of excavation from those beautiful stormwater basins, and also the requirements for how they're ultimately converted. And it provided a number of grading changes across the site. So I advised you that we would be seeing a change order request from Borough Construction. They're the general contractor. Blair is their site subcontractor for this work. And that tally was received in December. Now, you'll also recall that we approved the first change order, which took care of extra work that's in the yellow area. And forgive me, I don't remember the month. It was either October or November. But we approved that change order so that that work could proceed. Now we've got other extra work across the rest of the site, and this has been our task in the month of December to work with the construction team and justify that amount for you. So if we go to the next slide, we received a spreadsheet from Borough and Blair that covered, I'm going to say, 9 different areas of the site. And it's a spreadsheet that's, some 16 pages long. And I needed to make sense of what they were providing. This is the best way I can do it for you. The amount that they requested And this is even after we began negotiations, on the order of magnitude of $500,000 for work that is now in place on the building pad, in the basins, and with stormwater pipe. We reviewed it. We eliminated any work that you paid for previously that was in that spreadsheet. I found odds and ends that we had paid for previously, so I said, no good. That comes off. Then we got down to the business of justifying the amount for you. And in these 4 categories, this is the result of the effort. And the request, very frankly and honestly, is to have you consider a change order for Borough in the amount of $159,056.42. That covers these 4 areas: increased erosion and sediment controls, a credit for one of the sediment basins that we didn't have to install, additional earthwork and hauling. And there's a big number there. The amount requested was really well over $300,000, but we've whittled that down, frankly, because of the Academy New Church site, to the number that you see there, $11,000. And then our largest number in this change order has to do with all of the changes for additional stormwater pipe, deeper stormwater pipe, doghouse manhole work, rock apron work, and additional pipe and stormwater work associated with the change in the NPDES permit. And so that's a summary of where we are with what's in the ground today. It really represents what we've done in order to get to the building pad. So that's not the end of the story. One more slide. Also, while we were installing all of that stormwater, we did encounter rock. It was defined and clarified by the design team to be rock. We go through a process by which we do that. 172 yards were encountered. The unit price for payment on the rock is $125 a cubic yard. That's a bid price. You may recall we bid unit prices as a part of the job. That's not a good negotiated number. So that's a number that was bid with all of the contractors and entered into the contract. So the amount justified for rock this month is $21,500, and all of our utilities are now in the ground. So that should be the end of rock. So one question that you would ask is, Jamie, you've been talking about this permit delay and the NPDES for months now. When are we going to be done? When are we going to be done with the impact from that? And the complete impact of the permit delay, honestly, remains to be totally quantified. And the reason for that is because we've lost 4 months. The good news against that is in the month of November, the superintendent's weather control allowed us to pick up about a month of schedule time. I think you saw it out there. They worked every day. They worked long days. And the result, when we got a schedule update from Borough, was that we picked up a month. So that's 1 out of 4. We're not out of the woods yet. We need to determine what winter is going to do to us. There's this thing going around, I think they call it COVID. I'm not sure what the new impact of that is. Fortunately, we're outside. We haven't seen labor numbers on our job site drop. Construction guys they're pretty strong. They know that if they don't show up to work, they may not get paid for that day. So we've had good participation. But on the supply chain side, on any other things that may happen, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you on that. I know that you probably appreciate that. Supply chain issues, we have to see what happens as we go forward. It's gone well to date, but I can express to you we've had challenges on other jobs, and so we have to see. We're working hard. We're looking for ideas to continue to mitigate the cost impacts. I'll bring them to you as I arrive with them. We have 2 that we're working on now. For instance, we have some stormwater pipe in the back of this building that we could potentially eliminate in favor of a rain garden, which could be an environmental teaching tool for students. But more importantly, as we sit here and talk at this meeting, it's a cost savings. We also have the ability to look at those basins, which we convert at the end of the project, and see if we can't eliminate cost from those basins. So that is pending. We have to work with the Conservation District. Again, those conversions are almost 2 years from now, so we have some time, but we're not quitting. we're staying on it, trying to come up with the ideas every day. And of course, recouping schedule and making the plan for how we occupy the building and shift around Murray Avenue coming here, et cetera. That's the next hill that we have to climb. So to put it in context, I've made the numbers as large as they can. Hopefully this is distributed to you. When I take a look at the change order of 159 plus 21 that I'm requesting action for you this month on, I've put that in the context of the total project budget. So I've included the prior change order for Borough, and we had a small one for Phillips. I've added to it the 159, so that is included in that 290 that you see in the middle column. And on the right-hand side, I continued to provide a tally of where we are with cost. And if you scroll to the bottom, budget for the project, 69,992,431. I always read this bottom up. The next column or the next cell in green is contingency. That was always $1.4 million. It's still there. If you go the next cell up, the blue cell, that's the total soft cost at $7.7 million. And then the next cell up is a financing contingency that we talked to you about with Mark McGuinn. It's a financing amount that basically is a contingency. It was not necessary for the bond application for the project. So what I've done is I've taken the change orders to date out of that contingency in order to maintain $1.4 million in your contingency as we go to build the project. The other thing to point out is at $290,000, it's certainly nothing to scoff at as far as a change order amount, but that still only represents just less than 1% of the total construction cost. So we've worked very hard, tried to pull these numbers down, mitigate the impacts, do things like the Academy of the New Church. Contractors have been very cooperative. This is a very successful project combined with really unheard of weather that allowed us to really proceed and work as hard as we can to minimize the impact of the delay so far. And so that's where we are on total project budget. With that, I think there's one more. Oh, it's a thank you slide. No more pictures of beautiful basins. So with that, hopefully that's clear, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you have.
I have a question concerning the hauling away of the soil. So I love the savings on that. Can you just explain why there was such significant savings because we didn't have to haul away the soil?
So in a nutshell, there's a couple things that happened. We didn't start the project on time, and at the time of bid, the contractor knows where the soil is going to go. Mm-hmm. I had identified some locations where I knew it could go. One of those locations happens to be the UPS site just down the road that's over the city limit. That was the closest that I knew of. In the end, with the delay, two things happened. One, the permit changed and / increased the amount of export soil from the site. And that's because we had grading changes that increased the amount of waste, and we also had deeper basins for the stormwater requirements. And so we had thousands of yards that needed to be disposed of. The other thing that happened in the 4 months from bid to actual haul, fuel prices went up. Other things have increased dramatically. And so the first pass that I was given was actually that the UPS site closed for the winter, for example. And we had to quick find other places for soil to go. So Blair was instrumental there because they had other construction sites where they could take soil, and it ultimately didn't impact us greatly. And then the balance, or the extra soil that came as a result of the permit, we drove it across the property line and put it on the closest site we could find. And so that savings really represents the hauling price. If you look at it in general terms, to haul it by cubic yard, you're looking at something probably over $70 a cubic yard, and we have on the order of closing in on 10,000 yards that had to go. So that's a really big number. But it's the Academy of the New Church that really, saved the day. I hope that answers it for you.
It did, thank you.
Other than the contingency, do I understand then that the project is going to be 7.5 million, 70.5 million?
No, right now, the budget that I shared, the budget that we are working to is still 69,992.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Yes, sir.
And I'm sorry, I work with an individual whose water pipe failed, and the whole yard had to be ripped up and the pipes had to be pulled up and replaced. How long does the builder warranty the work that they do?
So it's a great question, and under your contract with your contractors, the contractor warrants all installed work for a period of 12 months after substantial completion of the project. So 12 months from what was to plan to be August of 2023.
And then we have the option to purchase some type of insurance coverage beyond that.
Well, there we could consult with your solicitor. There are things like the statute of limitations for any work that's found to be defective. So that's a state statute for where you could have a contractor come back and repair work that might be incorrect from a workmanship standpoint. Then there are manufacturer's warranties, and this is where we get into the various primes. So if I'm installing plastic pipe underground, it's really that 12-month warranty. But if you have an HVAC unit that has a 7-year warranty on its coil, your warranty is obviously different for that piece of equipment. And what we'll provide is a spreadsheet at the end of the job to Scott Ovington that identifies the vendor, the piece of equipment, and the length of manufacturer's warranty for all the equipment in the new building.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I apologize for turning my back.
No offense, you're new.
Okay. Is the 500K financing contingency built in as to be anticipated, the amount of contingencies for the entire project? And if so, are we 290 out of the 500K already?
Could we go to that budget, just so I can be clear? So the financing contingency I identified with Mr. McGuinn in the final throes of the project budgeting. And he has gone out on the street for the financing for the project. And we confirmed with PFM, your financial advisor, that the $500,000 that we were carrying for the cost of financing was included in the financing of the project. And so it simply became a project contingency. And I do recall advising the board on this when we did a final budget, probably when bids were received and we were identifying what the costs were. So what that $500,000 is doing, what I've done is I've reduced the $500,000 by the 323, if you're doing the math in your head, to reduce it to 176,248. So combined, if you look at this with the two numbers, you have 1.576 million in contingency right now for the project. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I was just trying to get a sense of, what our cushion is essentially with regards to further change orders and
That's
contingencies.
the cushion. That's exactly right.
And I think one of the things we've discussed, and maybe Jamie, you can speak to this, is that when you do a brand new project, most of your cost adjustments come in the earthwork, come in the utility, come in the building a new building is a little bit more standardized than renovating a building. There aren't those unforeseen and hidden costs in some of those types of things. However, we are inside a pandemic. We're seeing different changes when it comes to service and supplies. Our hope is that, we certainly can maintain what we've budgeted for in those structures, and we're not going to see anything that's going to be exceptionally outside of what we have left in that $1.5 million contingency right now. And I really have to applaud Jamie in terms of what he's done, most especially with the soil. The soil was a big deal. That was a huge undertaking and change that was somewhat unexpected when the permit needed and the amount of soils that needed to be removed. And finding that and working with A&C was really a gem, and you saw the cost savings there that are just really phenomenal with regard to that. So that really has helped us to this point.
We're very happy to lose sleep on your behalf. It's what we do. The construction team has worked very well together. No one's more frustrated by the delay in the NPS permit than I have been. I know the design team and Dr. David Heiser, Mark, they've seen it as we were trying to get this thing pushed through. So we are really working as hard as we can. It's good to get hopefully on steady ground at this point, let concrete go, get through the winter. Hope that January and February are not brutal to us, that we can continue. The mason is about to mobilize to start building masonry foundation walls and an elevator shaft. So we're hopeful, but I ask for your patience so that when we get back to warm weather, I can really identify for you what we can do about that end schedule and how we make this efficient as far as a move into the new building.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes, sir.
You said earlier that we are 4 months, we were 4 months behind that permit schedule, and thanks to the good weather, we made up a month. Are you saying to us now that the building will be available or open in December of 2023, not September now?
Right now, that's where it's looking, yes. Right as we speak, with the schedule that I have in hand, that's where we're looking.
Okay.
And so the question is, how do we manipulate?
Can we make it up?
How do we maneuver? Do we make it up? What are the options, right? Do we make it up somehow? Does that require paid overtime? But what's also known as constructive acceleration to the contractors. Do we contemplate something of a move over a winter break, which is not something that anyone would advocate for? Or do you delay? And the challenge here is that it's not just one move, it's two, and it's really three, because we talk about district admin, and it's not only district admin, but it's your data center. Now, your data center for the district is going in the new building, but that is quite the move. There's going to be a point in time where we have to go dark, then turn the new network back on again. So we have all of that planning still to go. So we have to see what we're really capable of achieving. And I'm sorry, but if you went to any contractor right now and said, I want to do something that's going to be faster and it's going to guarantee something in 2023, I mean, this is a very good board, very intelligent folks. That no one can guarantee whether we're going to have bus drivers tomorrow or substitute teachers available. So it's just too soon to tell.
Okay.
But every month you'll see me, and I'll try to provide you with guidance and the best expertise that I know, and the suggestions on what we might be able to achieve. If you were to spend the money very succinctly on overtime, you want a guarantee, right?
Yeah.
And without that, then I can't recommend that you try to accelerate.
Okay.
And I will say, we've had those discussions, Mr. McGuinn and Mr. Lynch and I, and again, I think this winter plays the largest role in seeing what we can and cannot do, and how accelerated or not we can take this. As Mr. Lynch said, now, if we decided to just somehow accelerate this, what's the guarantee a year from now with other supplies that may or may not? So it's more of a wait-and-see approach to know that. But, you know, for our school community, I think it's something that we need to be upfront with them as quickly as once we can make a decision on that. Its impact is great. You know, when you talk about a transitional inside a school year, those are often very difficult, most especially when you have just one move included in that, or 3 moves. We're pulling a grade from one building coming over, we're taking an entire middle school, shifting it, and shifting a high school to a newer high school. So it's significant in its logistics than it is just building a new building and stepping a few grades over across, you know, a street into that. So, you know, my suggestion is we really work with Mr. Lynch. He works with the contractors to see where we go. That is something that come this spring, early parts of summer, I think we're going to need to be able to make some decisions. And I think with Jamie, we'll be able to inform us the best way moving forward and projecting out, you know, inside that year from now sort of thing. So those are conversations we're having. They're not happy conversations right now, but we were, you know, put in immediately into a delay at the start of this project, which has pushed us back. We've been successful to this point with gaining some ground, but certainly not making up 4 months worth.
Thank you.
Hopefully, we'll be able to get a good bond rate, which will give us additional dollars, because even though there's been a slight uptick in the bond market, it still may help us financially.
We will be bringing to you a presentation in February with PFM. We'll be here and we'll talk about that next borrowing, that third borrowing, and we'll detail the events surrounding it and the months that it's going to take for that. And we'll talk about that in February. Any other questions for Mr. Lynch? I know you have another board meeting that you're
In the hall.
you're running to in the hallway right now.
One other
virtually.
plug is apparently you'll see me on social media. There's a student team documenting progress on the job. We've had groups of students on the site who have learned about how concrete is placed, how materials testing is done. They bundled up and wore appropriate footwear and shivered their way through what I think was a good learning session. So your documentarian, is that the right word? Has been, you know, very interested and great in the way that she's portraying things out on the site. So
Yeah.
look for that.
That will be up later this week.
Around the
and,
district.
I plan to attach that to the superintendent's newsletter, so that will be going out. So you'll be front facing.
I guess I have to approve it then.
I saw
Dr.
a
David Heiser approved it today.
preview of it, and it looked chilly, but you were well spoken, and it looked nice. So thank you.
All right. Thank you
And
all very
you
much.
know, one of
Happy
our
New Year.
plans is also for, and we've talked with Jamie about this, is to have you as a board out and do a site walk. We're targeting something probably later this month or early February. So dig out some boots out of your closets and be prepared to bundle up, and we'll probably take a 2-hour tour. And I'm assuming the documentarian team will want to do some interviewing out there with all of you as well in regards to this project. But it'll give you an opportunity to see firsthand some of the, especially some of the masonry that you're going to see going up and such. Okay, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year, everyone.
Dr. David Heiser, question. A community member asked me over the break if we settled on a name for the middle school. I know it's not going to be the Mary Avenue School being on Red Lion Road. Is it going to be Lower Moreland Middle School or Red Lion Middle School? Or are we going to ask? Are we going to ask?
Lower Moreland Middle School
Okay.
is what we've
Okay.
settled on.
You settled?
So
Okay.
you'll be on the campus of both Lower Moreland Middle School and High School.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Now I know.
An inclusive 5 through 12 campus.
I didn't know.
Okay, that takes us down to the superintendent's updates, and Mr. McGuinn is not here this evening, so I'm going to stand in his place and not necessarily speak business items with you, but I do have a pretty important update and this is going to impact us for the next 6 months, and it is dealing with Buck Road. And I'd just like to read some things to you and hopefully our community who may be listening in as well. So this is a project, if you're familiar with Huntington Pike and its recent project that it had, Aqua was doing water main replacements throughout the road, and they were flagging it during most of the day since I think that started sometime in August up until right before our winter break. So essentially took a 4-month period of time. A similar thing is going to be happening on Buck Road. Mr. McGuinn took a Zoom meeting with members of the Aqua project team and the township, and the meeting was held in Zoom to discuss the upcoming project that will replace a water main on Buck Road between Huntington Pike and Byberry Road. They discussed the scope of the project, and that's slated to replace a 20-inch water main on Buck Road that was originally installed in 1909. The duration of the project is expected to be starting next week, next Monday, through June 2022. The planned work times will be daily from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. with a planned full road closure on Buck Road between Byberry Road and Huntington Pike. The project will have 2 teams working along Buck Road. One team will start at Tomlinson and Buck in the middle of Bernathen and work towards Huntington Pike. The other team will start at Buck and Byberry and work towards Tomlinson. Mr. McGuinn explained the need for the use of Buck Road for not only our school buses but student drivers during this meeting, as well as for afternoon dismissals at the high school. He suggested flagging the road, allowing 1 lane to pass. Alternatively, he suggested to change the times to the end time to be at 2 o'clock for their work. The timing idea was not accepted. It was rejected by Aqua. And the flagging for school buses only is a possibility. However, Aqua is going to need to be able to determine this next week when they start the project to first determine where in the road the main line actually is. And there's concern that the road will not be wide enough to allow for safe passage for buses if they were to put it down to 1 lane. So we're not really sure yet. The potential impacts, and I think you can probably already spin in your head some of those impacts. First and foremost, student drivers will not be allowed to go out the Buck Road entrance exit, as many of our drivers do. At best, only buses that absolutely need to go down Buck Road will be allowed to exit on Buck Road, but we won't be able, that will not be determined until Aqua is on site next week and investigates actually, again, where the water main actually is. So we expect about 85 to 90% or potentially 100% of our dismissal traffic from the high school will be exiting onto Red Lion Road at 235. The increased traffic along other roads will be dramatically affected for dismissals at all 3 of our other schools. And construction traffic will also be impacted. So what are some of our action planning that we're considering? Obviously communicating as soon as possible when we do have some plans to our parents and our community about these impacts and what we are going to do. The high school team's already assembling and working on some plans, some of which might be an earlier dismissal either for bus riders or drivers, so we can separate the 2 if all have to go out that same entrance and exit onto Red Lion Road. We are going to suggest again to our families, which we have is up and working, the bus tracking app to determine travel impacts personally for each family. And there's a meeting, I believe, being scheduled with the Lower Moreland Police and the high school team right now in consideration, asking for the possible presence of a traffic officer down at Red Lion so that we can move traffic in and out more swiftly during that 15, 20-minute time period so that we can get buses out, we can get student drivers out, we can keep flow going as best as possible. We also have a school resource officer, obviously, that we partner with and plan to try to optimize his usage in that as well. And again, this is certainly the impact is most greatly felt at high school. The road is expected to be open after 3 o'clock. However, the chain effect to that and the delays that would be expected with that are probably going to be significant across not only Murray, but all the way down to Pine, which, is at the bottom of that last rung of our tiered system of busing. So it's significant that you've seen the you've seen the signs up for a couple weeks. They did delay the project a week. There was plans, I believe, to start it this week that had been delayed. And we made sure to try to get a meeting with Aqua to try to work on some ways around this. It appears that the project is slated to go. There is no consideration of a school sitting on that road and so forth of when its times are. So we're going to need to be able to work around this and have some patience and some flexibility and some keen design to try to make sure that we can maximize as much time and efficiency in getting out. As soon as we have those plans and we have those meetings throughout the remainder of this week with the police department to make some determinations as to what we're going to be able to do.
I think you also, besides where the exit to the high school is, you may want to consider having an officer also at Red Lion and Huntington Pike, because if they have to wait for that light there, going on the Huntington Pike, it doesn't move very quickly, and you would get backed up
Yeah.
all the way to the high school.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be an officer. We may ask the township to look at that lighting to make sure that its signals can operate in an effective way at various times. So that's also been part of our notes as to some of the asks to do there. It's a challenge when you take one major parallel road away in the township, and we've seen that with the Pike, and if you've been out there middle of the day and the weekday, it becomes a bit of a challenge. And Buck was that alternative to kind of sneak around, and I expect that to be a challenge for us a little bit here as we take away one full exit. All
So
right.
David Hazard, you mentioned that we might shorten the day for an earlier dismissal?
Not looking to, the day shortening would only be minutes. I'm talking about a staggered, 5 minutes out to get our student bus riders on the buses, get those out. If our hope is that the buses that need to go out onto Buck are going to be able to do that, and they'll be able to flag that road for us and only allow those buses for that small portion of the day to do that. We do have some buses that go out down onto Red Lion Road. So we need to have some bit of staggering. We can't let 150 drivers and 18 buses all just release at once and expect that everything's going to work cohesively going out of one exit.
So is that something, because you shorten a day, even if it's 5 minutes, do you have that okayed by PDE because we're shortening the day?
We won't run into a time constraint with that.
Okay.
We have beyond the minute
Okay.
calculations that we need
Okay.
for that. That won't be a problem with
Okay,
that.
thank you.
So, Dr. David Heiser, you're saying Buck Road is going to be closed permanently? It won't reopen at 3 p.m.?
From 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. it will be closed.
Okay.
So in the early morning hours open.
Won't be a problem.
After 3 o'clock, it will be reopened again.
Would Aqua be open to, all right, they didn't want to go to 2. From 3, would they be open to, say, 2:45?
Yeah, we've tried to move it every different
Because
direction.
let the school buses out first, let the students leave the parking lot at 2:45, I think that could possibly work.
Yeah, that does not appear they're going to allow anything of vehicles out to get onto that road. Buses, we may have a chance. I can't give you the total. I think we leave 18 buses leave out of the high school. I'm not sure exactly how many of those 18 go onto Buck. The more majority do go out onto Buck.
Right.
So you're talking about maybe close to a dozen buses that we'd love to make sure we can get them through that, excuse me, through that area. But students are going to need to exit out the Red Lion, both left and right. So it's a challenge. So I want to make you aware and certainly make our community in the next coming days as we lay out the plans and have more specifics, we'll again do that. But I think everyone's going to need some patience and certainly leaving some extra time or accepting the fact that it's going to take longer to get in and out and back home or wherever folks are going, and, you know, for our students, that's our staff included to a certain extent. After 3 o'clock, though, is not as big a deal. That buck would be open for our staff after that particular time. It's really a target time of dismissal just for high school. Okay. My other update is that we're back in person. This week for 2 days has been it's been a bit of a challenge as numbers have risen. Staff's done a wonderful job. We do have more staff out than we've had. We have had some positive staff, but the administrative team and principals and coverages by peers in and among the staff has allowed us to remain. And as you're seeing some school districts throughout the region that they've had to have some functional closures due to staffing issues. If you checked our rolling 14-day dashboard just recently, you'll find on there, and we eliminated, I know Dr. Lee, you had mentioned, you know, we had in there, and last year's model was after 3 days or an extended weekend that it would roll back to 0. We took that away because that was not an impact that the state had on us any longer, so that we could be in real time. So it's a true 14-day rolling period. We've had that for a month or so now. So these are real rolling numbers. We currently have 28 cases, positive cases at the high school. All 28 of these cases were reported over winter break. So none of those students have been into the building, and the nurses have worked with them on their return dates based on their conditions and their symptoms. Murray Avenue, we have 34 reported cases. 25 of the 34 were again reported over the winter break and not have been in the building. And at Pine Road, we have, excuse me, 34 positive reported cases. 33 of the 34 have not touched the building. They were just reported in. So our families have done a wonderful job. Our nurses were really busy over the winter break, doing a lot of phone calling and answering of questions for families, and I'm thankful for families for recognizing the need to report those and keep their students home. We've had success with that. We've not seen any transmission to in the last 2 days inside of buildings that we can identify in any way. So that the health and safety plan appears to be working as intended, and it's expected. And I think you've seen through the media that this is probably going to be over the next 2 to 3 weeks, this heightened surge and the peak with regard to these. And there's changing dynamics with regard to guidance, much of which I've shared over the last week and over the winter break with the school community and some of the changes to CDC. And Dr. Butler just asked if I had seen the latest with the CDC, which has sent more different changing guidance out. So we'll see where that lands with working with our Montgomery Office of Public Health and so forth. But I did want to report on that for you, and that things are busy, but going well.
How are the students getting any type of education who are home? Because it's quite a large number.
Well, if you recall last year, we were in a hybrid system for the entire 3/4 of the year last year. So we had cameras on and so forth. So those students can stream if it's a COVID-related issue, if it's something that's related, that's identified, if they're positive or they've been a close contact, household contact, it's been verified by a physician or our school nurses. Those students are given a link and they're able to join in virtually, and they
So
stream.
they can go
and they
in
stream
virtually.
in just like they do. The teachers are told and given, and those links are sent out to those students. Students are able to join in, and we have the iPads set up as we did last year for those students to stream in. Certainly not where we want to be, but in a short term, hopefully of 2 to 3 weeks, something that we can provide to keep students abreast of where they need to be and staying in tune to all the things necessary. Okay, so that was Mr. McGuinn's update. We're going to move to our next update, and Mrs. Drennan, if you'd like your curriculum update.
This evening, I'm sharing with you the recommended changes to the program of studies for Lower Moreland High School for the 22-23 school year. You've been provided with a change document that highlights anything that's being changed from what was approved last year to this year, as well as the actual program of studies. So course selection will kick off in February for high school students. It'll follow later in the spring for Murray Avenue students who are rising into the high school. There are minimal changes this year. There are no new courses being recommended. But just to highlight for you a couple of the items you'll find on the change document, verbiage and information about Act 158, which are the state graduation requirements which begin with the class of 23, have been added. And then the withdrawal period during the first marking period has been extended. Traditionally, it has been that you needed to withdraw from a class by the interim. It's now being extended to prior to the end of the first marking period to give students more time to respond. Parent request dates are set annually based on the school calendar. So if parent requests have a request for a placement change for the 22-23 school year, that request needs to come in by the 29th. For the first time in a very long time, the decision has been made to recommend that AP exams will no longer be required and they will be optional. So students traditionally in Lower Moreland who have enrolled in an AP course have been required to take the exam. The rising cost of the exam is definitely posing some challenges for some families. We're sensitive to that. The other issue that a number of students are coming up against is that a number of schools are no longer accepting AP credit. So they pay a lot of money to sit for an exam and then don't reap a benefit on the other end. Providing students with the option to take it empowers them to make that decision rather than require it. It may also open the door for more students who might be likely to want to take an exam, but to take an AP course, but we're intimidated by the exam. So we think it's a good opportunity for students and definitely more equitable moving forward. Course description updates. Every year we have department leaders and teachers look at the course descriptions to make sure that they accurately reflect what is happening in real time. So there are minor course description updates to civics, website design, chemistry, biology, and Eastern Center for Arts and Technology always updates their section as well. And then being added back in to the enrichment or extracurriculars, you'll see Asian Cultures Club is making a return. It had been a long-standing program or club at the high school, and then the faculty member who oversaw that retired. We now have another sponsor who's leading that, and that will be added back in for next year's program of studies. And that is a brief summary of what you have provided for you in the backup.
Mrs. Drennan, I have a question. Do you happen to know the percentage of colleges that no longer accept the AP course?
No, I couldn't tell you that. And I think it's not even just blanket that a college does or doesn't. Sometimes it's dependent upon the student's intended major. Sometimes they make you repeat courses anyway, so the AP credits don't apply.
In your opinion, is this increasing, or is it a trend that's increasing across the colleges?
I can't speak for our school counselors, but I think that over time they are hearing from families who have concerns about having to pay for an exam that won't yield a benefit on the other end. So it has become more of feedback or concern that they are hearing. But in terms of quantifying that concern, I'm not really sure I could do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
The economics of AP, and as more and more colleges, there's been more participation in AP courses over the last decade, and with that, the economics, if you see that from a college standpoint and why they're not accepting as they once had, or even for prerequisites, that's the economics of courses that a student may have had to pay for, and you know, that sort of thing. So I think there's a shift with that at colleges. Certainly there's some schools, and certainly some of our students are receiving monies for various ones, and our counselors are encouraging that graduation plan as they work through, and trying to identify majors, and the students understand what types of systems they want to get into, and colleges toward that to try to target those, to make those decisions a little bit earlier, so they can make better economic decisions when it comes to that.
I had read that it was also tied to a stress level, that they were looking at, like,
Absolutely.
could they decrease the stress level for students if it wasn't contingent on
Yeah.
the credit?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
If we take away the exams, how will we determine if credit is given for the course? Is it going to be based on their grades?
Based on the course itself.
Okay, and what they
It-
achieve in that course? Like-
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Students who do not opt to take the AP exam will be given a final exam in that course, however.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Dren. Mrs. Gaudo, take you down to your update.
Certainly. Governor Wolf recently signed an act, it's called Act 91, to help with the help with the critical staffing shortages that are happening during the pandemic. So, what Act 91 does for it during the 2021-22 and 2022-23 school years, it enables retirees, day-to-day substitute educators with inactive certifications, graduates of teacher preparation programs, and paraprofessionals who meet certain eligibility, employed as substitute teachers in schools. So you'll see what they're listed. The criteria are listed there. More guidance is going to be coming out from the Pennsylvania Department of Education about how these steps are to be operationalized in schools. So it's not clear right now, how this is to be done. So more guidance will be coming. Hopefully, this will help somewhat with staffing shortages during the next 2 years. And on the public relations side, we are gearing up for our Martin Luther King Day celebrations. So at the high school, they will be gathering food donations for the Jenkintown Food Bank and dropping off the donations at the food bank. They're also partnering with the township to lay wood chips down at the Valley Forge, the Valley Center Park on the wood trails there on the Martin Luther King Day. And at Murray Avenue, they're going to be collecting toiletries and making blankets. I'm sorry, that's the word. It said blanks, but it should be blankets for youth homeless shelter. And at Pine Road, they're going to have various activities that students and parents can participate in. They'll have indoor activities, making cards and care bags for senior citizen centers, and outdoors they'll be working on the nature trail. So that's my update. Thank you.
I have a quick question. So you tell me prior to this, a retired teacher was not eligible or allowed to fill in?
Yeah, well, there was various ways you could get around that. So a retired teacher, if they worked for like the substitute teacher service, they could work in our schools, but we couldn't directly employ them unless it was like an emergency situation. So there was various restrictions on the retirees because they were collecting money from the retirement system. So the retirement system didn't want them to be double dipping. You don't want them to continue to work in a school and collecting their pension. And so there was, very strict, they were very strict about that. And it could put a retiree's pension at jeopardy. But this is easing those restrictions. I think they realize now that, hey, we need some people back. So if they want to work, let them work without digging their pension, basically.
So was that a restriction that the teachers union, I guess, had in place because they were paying them the pension that they didn't allow them to?
That was a
work?
public schools retiree system, so it was the state level pension system had that in place. And they wanted to make, before they wanted to open up job opportunities for young, new educators coming into the system. So they didn't want, somebody drawing their pension and working at the same time. But now it's critical, the staffing shortages. Yes.
Mrs. Gaudo, are we being proactive in reaching out to our retired teachers to just survey which ones would be interested to come back and fill vacancies if on an as needed basis in case we need them?
Yes, so we have utilized, we have done that. So And we have utilized several of those folks, and we continue to utilize them today. But unfortunately, they've been kind of nervous about coming back into schools because of health issues. So yeah, but we have been. And last year when we were, we had online options. We used several of those, retired teachers to teach online. So yeah, so it's they're helpful if they, but when they can't come in, they've been very helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, as you can see, it's expanded this widely, right, with the shortages that are out there. I think they're throwing everything from a state level out there that they can think of to be able to assist schools. We're fortunate, and you may not think that on a daily basis, but we're very, very fortunate that we've been able to retain building substitutes. So we have daily substitutes in our buildings who do, we're able to operationalize them in a moment's notice, covering various classes. So in this past fall, bless you, when we did not have as many absences as we're seeing right now, the surge is a little bit different than, but we were, while other districts were still struggling on a daily basis, it wasn't as much a struggle for us. And I think a lot of that speaks to the caliber of folks wanting to come in and to teach inside the district, and speaks well for our students and our staff, and the nature of our buildings and such. It's a challenge. That's different now this week than it's ever been, and that's just completely because we're in such that. So it's all hands on deck right now, and we are affording some of our teachers the opportunity who are fully vaccinated, who may be positive, that can't be in the building, to teach virtually from home to their class that's in there, and while we have somebody else as a presence in there to manage the class. So, if we can maintain that during these pressure cooker weeks, that helps us to maintain a real continuity of education for our students, which is highly important. To bring somebody in who's not fluent in that subject area just as a substitute, as a body, while we have students in, how purposeful is it? So if we can maintain a lot of that, so we're being very, very flexible and creative in how we're designing this on a daily basis, and I have to applaud Mrs. Gaudo for her efforts every day in moving the pieces around, and our staff is covering during their free times and their planning times as well for some of their colleagues as we need this all hands on deck approach. Okay, that takes us down to special education. Mr. Giordano.
Thank you. The PACE survey of the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, otherwise known as the PACE survey, is conducted every 2 years by the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. And Mrs. O'Malley, our supervisor of student services, spearheads this initiative. And the survey was conducted in our district in October. Dr. Hill, could you advance that slide for me? Thank you. Preliminary results are in, but they are just that. They're preliminary and they don't really tell us much. At this point, the final report will be available in April, and it's much more detailed and useful, so we'll update you again at that time when those results are available. I felt this might be a good time to provide an update on risk assessments throughout the district. Risk assessments, what that really means is a student has indicated either something they've said, written, or report from other students that they've done something that would be considered a risk to themselves or others. In comparison to past years, we seem to be somewhat on a trajectory to match probably our last quote-unquote normal year before the pandemic, where we had 51 total for the year. I guess you can probably discount most of 2021. There wasn't, every student wasn't in the district, in the buildings then. And our closest, the in-between year, the 1920 was, we were only in school till March. So we're 22 total this year so far, which is good news. I mean, it's January. It's good in that we don't appear to be highly elevated, considering that our students are still coming back to us with intense mental health needs and social and emotional needs. However, at this point, due to, you could probably attribute this to the work of our staff, the resilience of our students, you know, the work of our staff and our counselors, community counselors, to build those proactive relationships with students, to have someone to go to and talk to before they get to the level where they reach the need for a risk assessment to determine if they're you know at risk of harming themselves or someone else. And in this number of 22, 2 of those were risk assessments done because something was said or written that may have been deemed to be a threat to another student. So that is encouraging in that in this time of worry about threats in schools and violence and whatnot, that we've only had 2 risk assessments in which we thought somebody may have said something that was considered a threat to someone else, and those risk assessments were deemed to be non-substantive, which means it was really unfounded. Maybe a student said something they shouldn't have said, and it was deemed by our risk assessment team to be not a viable threat. So that leaves 20. The remaining 20 were cases in which students were felt to be a risk to themselves. So this is encouraging, and we can we don't want to see any risk assessments naturally, but we can keep an eye on this as the year continues, and we can give you updates at various points throughout the school year.
Mr. Giovanni, can you just share with the board a little bit of the broad strokes of students deemed and to come down for a risk assessment? What's that process look like? And
Yeah.
kind of explain that to the board, if you would, please.
Really, we get wind of something that's either been said by a student. Could be something that one of their friends reports. It could be something that they've written. It could be something that they've said to a staff member or a counselor, which the person then, typically the school counselor, would take it to the next level of, well, that was something that you don't typically hear. That might be something in which they flat out write something and saying they want to harm themselves. It could be a report from a parent. It could be a number of things. The school counselor, in conjunction with the building administrator or another school counselor or even the school psychologist, will conduct a risk assessment using standardized forms that we've culled together for our teams to use from various resources, research-based resources, to ask questions, a series of questions to kind of tease out whether or not the threat is viable. And then we go through a level of questioning and a level of review of what they've said. Maybe have they said things like this in the past? Is it the first time that they've said something like this or done something like this? Is there a history, something we should worry about, be concerned about? And then the team makes a decision as to whether or not it's considered a viable threat or not. There's different levels, whether it's substantive or not substantive. And then if we consider it to be substantive, we'll make recommendations to the family to take the student somewhere to be examined further. We might offer them assistance through the SAP team. At certain points, we may get our school psychiatrist involved that we use to conduct evaluations. So there's a number of resources we can provide after the fact if we find it to be a substantive threat. And then we follow up with the family afterwards or any care provider that the student may go to.
Was one of the special ed classes, as part of their project, did they go shopping this week?
Did one of our classes go shopping this week?
Yes. At the Giant?
Probably, yes.
I saw them at the Giant. They were very well behaved, if it was our class.
It probably was. That would have been, I believe, not this week, probably the week before the holiday break. Or would have been...
They were pretty
may have had
tall.
someone there.
The boys were
They may have
pretty
been there
tall.
yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. And Dr. Hill?
Thank you, Dr. David Heiser. Technology update. We have now moved into 2022, so we moved up a bracket for repairs. Still really great news. As I mentioned last month, most of the repairs at Pine Road are related to the age of the Chromebooks and just a kind of a weakness in the design with a plastic hinge versus the new ones have metal hinges. So although Pine Road exceeds the other buildings, the students are still taking really nice care of their devices. And I thought this month, since certainly something to be proud of, the logical next question is there data related to how students are using the devices, because we've certainly invested a significant amount of money, time, professional development, and recurring professional development to ensure that the devices are being used, but there certainly needs to be curricular goals and innovative learning related to instructional technology. So we use a product called ClassLink, which allows, it started a few years ago. Our youngest learners were taking additional time to log into the devices. So we didn't want that to be a hindrance, and then logging into all the different applications. So you can imagine an emergent reader, kindergartner, first grade student who is just learning numbers and letters and then needing to put in a 15, 16, 17 character username and password. So logging in was one thing, and then accessing the resources was another. So we adopted a product called ClassLink, which either uses QR codes or QR codes with a camera to easily sign in, and then from that portal, students are already signed into the other resources. So it's a single sign-on with, it's a picture card, and they can access the resources. We expanded that to staff members. So staff members now can log in and access the resources, again, without needing to sign in multiple times. And although a few minutes a day doesn't sound like a lot, a few minutes a day over 180, 185 days is certainly significant. So I just wanted to provide some data, and iReady, Canvas, HMH, all of these are tools used at all three buildings. And you can see math, the Teacher Access Center, HMH, Read 180, and Epic are all included in there. And it's significant. So the 70,000 launches is this school year thus far. And I broke it out on the right-hand side with most active, and you can see almost 72,000 launches. So that would be launches of iReady, launches of Canvas, launches of HMH. Canvas is used at Murray Avenue in the high school, and in Lower Moreland High School and Pine Road. And you can see our busiest day, Monday, logins. Our least busy day is Sunday, and the peak month for this year thus far is October. So we just moved into January, but I wanted you to see just how heavily utilized the applications that we subscribe to are being used, and give a shout out to Murray Avenue, because they're certainly doing a nice job, especially with Canvas and some of the online resources. So that's very significant, and kudos to the teachers, staff, and students. So this month's tech tidbit involves fifth grade students in Mr. Warren's class. They're creating tutorial videos using WeVideo and other technology of their choice. So fifth grade student Pat described his project like this. For my tutorial, I used my Chromebook with the WeVideo website to create a video tutorial on unlocking a feature in a video game. I also used my home Xbox with the Minecraft app for a visual demonstration to accompany the audio. So this is screencasting, this is building skills for maybe future YouTube influencers. And let's check out this month's Tech Tidbit video for another example of a student project.
The tech I used for my instructional video was WeVideo to make my video, Scratch to code the game in my computer. I used the idea of how to code a jumping game on Scratch. So when you watch my video, I try to explain why I did that code and why it works. As a result, when you finish the video, you will have a jumping game if you did it correct. So let's go into operators again and grab an OR signal. If not touching ball or ball 2, ball 2, so let's put that back in there. Then we want to change the score by 1. Otherwise, we do not want that, so let's check that out. Nice. Now if I jump, you can see that the score doesn't change, so you can't hack the game. So yeah. If you enjoyed this tutorial,
So as you can see, definitely informative and something that students and certainly adults use. If you think about the last time you wanted to learn how to do something that you didn't know how to do, think about how many times you've gone to YouTube to do that. And I just want to say, as we start the new year, it certainly is a pleasure each month to get to share these really wonderful things that our students are doing. And it's definitely a testament to the board's vision and supporting technology in the district. So I want to start the new year with saying thank you. And it definitely is a pleasure each month to share these really wonderful things.
I have a quick question. Can you explain how the younger children use the QR codes? Is that something they can also use at home? Or is that like a class set that's in a classroom and each child just takes an individual one, or like a class QR
Yeah,
code?
great question, and I don't think I have mine with me at the moment, but it's personalized, so each student receives their own quick card, and the younger students, they can have one with their photos on it, just like a yearbook photo. And as long as the device has a camera, so our Chromebooks are configured that at the login screen for our youngest learners, there's a prompt, and it's a visual cue with a picture of the quick card. So you click a button, they hold it up, and it scans the QR code, and they're able to log in. Works on iPads as well. Same thing at home. As long as the device has a camera that can scan the code, it will work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Helt. Okay, that's going to take us down. We have a few personnel items. Mrs. Gaudo, I think it's just items A and C that there's
That's correct,
a
yep.
few
So
in there.
item A is we have one new hire, a substitute nurse, Jacqueline Timoney. She'd be hired for the 2021-22 school year at $25 an hour. She's a district parent, and she's a certified a nurse practitioner, so she's certainly qualified. And under leaves, we have employee 1813, who is a teacher at Pine Road, is requesting an extension of her sabbatical. She's currently on a health restoration sabbatical for the first semester. She requested to extend that leave for the second semester as well. And then Colin Quinn Maxwell, a health and PE teacher at the high school, is requesting an FMLA from February 11th to March 14th. So as Dr. David Heiser said, we have no non-athletic extracurricular contracts at this time, but we do have one athletic contract, which is at Marie Avenue, the assistant boys soccer coach, Alexander Lean.
Dr. David Heiser, soccer is over. It's the fall sport, so why is that a curricular activity now? Is there
Yeah,
a
he just got his contract signed. It was paperwork hold up. He completed the activity. It was just a matter of getting the form signed.
Okay.
Yeah, just the paperwork.
So this was for the fall semester that
Yes,
ended?
yes,
Okay, thank
yeah.
you.
Yes.
Retroactively being applied here for him. And Mrs. Gaudo, I know under curriculum with the, under DEI, update on the progress action plan for DEI.
So I'll wait for Dr. Hill to bring that up. Okay. So as you might recall, in October, at the October board meeting, the DE&I action plan was approved by the board. It's a 3 to 5 year action plan, and it outlines steps to be taken in each of the following goal areas. So we have 5 goal areas, and just to go over them again. There's policies and procedures, goal area, culture, climate, and safety, culturally responsive curriculum, culturally responsive staff development, and community and family engagement. So those are our 5 goal areas that we're focused on. So you see the goal statement for the culturally responsive policies and procedures goal. Okay. So what we're doing in the policies and procedures area currently, we're looking at equity statements from other districts that are in Montgomery County, and then more broadly, nationwide. And we're gathering the statements and focusing on one that is tailored to our school district. And we hope to bring that to the board this spring to, ask them to adopt the equity statement. So the equity statement will really be a vision for the district as far as what do we want to see, through our efforts focused on, diversity, equity, inclusion. What will change in the district? What will the district look like? What will be improved because of our diversity efforts? So it's really, a goal statement. What do we want to see? What is our vision for the district going forward? And then we hope to develop a video and have students, teachers, parents speaking to, again, what will the district, what is our vision for the future? What will be improved in the district, by focusing on DE&I. So that's a long-term goal we hope to have. For codes of conduct, we currently have a team of administrative staff looking at the various codes of conduct from other school districts, and they're pointing out areas in which we may want to tweak our code of conduct, and then we'll take those recommendations back to the Policies and Procedures Committee to look at and make some decisions on. So we're in that fact-finding stage now. We have a calendar committee that is meeting in January and in February. So the calendar committee will look at the school calendar through a DE&I lens and make recommendations to the superintendent and school board. That will come in March, those recommendations. And so again, we want to look at, with our changing demographics, what really makes sense as far as, to honor the diversity and culture of our community. School holidays do we want to recognize and so forth. So that will be coming in March. We'll make some recommendations. And then finally, we did school board approved joining the Montgomery County Outreach Initiative in an effort to hire more diverse educators. That was approved last month, so we're very grateful for that. Okay, so now we'll move on to the culture, climate, and safety goal. Okay, and in that area, so each of our school administrative teams have been asked to create a schedule for their buildings for the remainder of the year to have monthly discussion starters around topics of diversity and have various activities planned for students and staff. So at Pine Road, one of the things they're doing is they're having buddy class days where older class, fourth and fifth grade students are partnering up with the younger grades. They're also having school-wide pillar assembly. So Pine Road, as you may recall, has their 4 pillars that very much part of the Pine Road culture, and they're having assemblies around the various pillars and having classroom activities based on that. At Murray Avenue, they're having bullying assemblies and lessons, and they're also having classroom lessons and discussions around topics that aren't suitable for joking around. So what is not a joking matter for middle schoolers? Sometimes it's a hard thing for middle school students to discern what is appropriate and what is not. So they're having those discussions in classrooms. And at the high school is partnering with the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit to provide lessons for students around tolerance training. So I would look forward to seeing that happen in the spring. Okay, and we'll go on now to the culturally responsive curriculum. So the curriculum office, Mr. Brennan, has really made an effort to have the curricular committees look through a diversity lens when considering curriculum, readings, the arts and music topics and so forth. So looking for an inclusive lens for making sure all cultures are representative in our school lessons, and also making sure we have culturally inclusive teaching instructional practices. Okay, so we'll go on to staff development now. So we've had various staff development efforts at all levels. So the administration has been going through monthly 2-hour trainings on issues of DE&I, and our lead teachers and department heads are having four 2-hour trainings this school year on topics of diversity and inclusion as well. And so our school faculty has received training around issues of courageous conversations and microaggressions and so forth. And then we've had, even drilling down from that, we've had building-driven training on topics such as how to incorporate more diverse representation of school libraries and so forth. So it's been a top-down effort from, administrators, to department heads, to building level staff, and then to, even to classrooms. So it's really been, a conscious effort throughout the faculty. On family and community engagement, you want to scroll down to that one? So each of our schools have been asked to assemble a community engagement team made of the parents, staff, and students. And the community engagement teams will be the organizing body for DE&I activities and events that happen in the school. So they will be coming up with a calendar of events to really, highlight their DE&I efforts. So this might include multicultural days and so forth, like Pine Road is doing. We hope to, expand those to Murray Avenue in the high school. And so they're working with the Diversity Council, as with the Family and Community Engagement Goal Group at the higher level, is kind of overseeing this effort with each of the school building teams. So we really hope to get that going. Okay, and that is the update.
Thank you, Ms. Scaldo. Any questions?
Dr. David Heiser, I participate on the culture, safety, climate group, and last meeting, one of the participants, Mrs. Baxter, brought up, having discussions in each building, and getting that started. Is that what this courageous conversation is?
No, the Courageous Conversations is really a book that we're using in trainings with our administrative team and our lead teachers at this point. So we have initiated, and it's expected by the end of this month, that we, on a monthly basis in each of our buildings, are working at age appropriate to host some of those types of, what you say, discussion starters.
Yeah.
Whether it be through a WIN session at Murray or through a forum session at high school, in order to engage our students in some honest conversations and some simple conversations of tolerance, various topics related to different things and initiatives, some of which might be timely, just based on things that are going on in the environment around, or things that are a little bit more pre-planned in terms of some of that. So each of the 3 buildings is working their calendar out to host, and we'll be hosting one to start in this month.
Okay.
And then the community engagement teams that were just referenced with the family and community group is really a group of individuals of all stakeholder groups at each of the buildings that is really setting the activities, the activity calendar for the year, and the types of things that we want to utilize throughout the year, the different types of assemblies or speakers or events after school or clubs that might have interest, to be able to set those calendars. And the larger group here in the family community group at the DEI council level, assisting kind of with the roadmap and the game plan to hand over to them as to how do you go about setting some of those things up and allowing those individuals to help assist.
Okay.
So those are two of the biggies that are happening, the assembly of the CET teams this month, and discussion starter, if we want to just call it that, in terms of that engagement component expectation at each of the buildings happening this month and on a regular monthly basis. That kind of came out of our last council meeting, in terms of some things that we wanted to see. On a daily basis, there are just so many things that just don't go listed here that we are continually working on. We need some focal points, and this is important to have that so that we are doing some dedicated things. There are many things that we're working on, just even in the hiring practice forms and things of that nature that just go on in the routine of trying to do things on a daily basis. We hope to bring back to you these progress reports just as check-ins and accountability check-ins to share some things that you may or may not know. I know a number of you all are involved in the council and participate in those, so you hear a lot of these things in some of those meetings as well, but it's important for us in our community.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Takes us down to the use of the buildings, and we do have one. The township has approached the district in terms of coming back to this summer for their summer rec program, which is hosted at really at Murray Avenue and the use of the fields and the buildings there. You see, they did not, I believe, the last 2 years, it has not been hosted here at the district level, so they are proposing for that to occur this year. So that will be here for your approval at our legislative meeting.
Dr. David Heiser, I don't know if you want to go back. There was one item under curriculum for this evening.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We went
I'm
over that
sorry.
program
I did
study.
skip over that. Sorry about that. Mrs. Drennan, the larger scale program of studies.
This was a part of my update previously, but there's a request for approval of the 2022-2023 program of studies for the high school as attached.
Can you just walk the board through why now with the program of studies and approval, and what's that then kickoff?
Sure. We bring this to you typically in the month of January because beginning in the month of February, students at the high school begin to meet with guidance counselors and have presentations on course selection for the following year. The course selection process kicks off in February and goes through intensively through the spring. Murray Avenue students who are currently in 8th grade and rising 9th graders will complete their part of the scheduling process in March and April.
Okay, thank you. And you can see there listed our accounts payable checklist. And lastly, we do have under school board, this is the Eastern Center for Arts and Technology, ECAT, their proposed budget for this coming school year. If you were to click on to those, and actually the first, Dr. Hilt, if you click on the first attachment, excuse me, not first attachment, I think it's the second attachment I want to take you to. No, first attachment. And if you were to scroll to page 2, at the bottom, see in that chart, you'll see the operating assessment, net capital assessment for us, our assessed value, and our participating fees. And I think, as probably everyone is aware, under school code, it is required by law that we do participate, and the bylaws as shared through ECAT allow for an assessment and then local payments from the varying districts. For the 22-23 school year, there is going to be a slight increase, a little over $31,000 increase for that. As you're aware, included not only is the operating assessment, but also a net capital assessment, and that has handled a number of the more recent renovations over a 10-year pay-as-you-go system that's been incorporated and was adopted a few years ago by all of the districts involved and sending districts here. And you can see there the various cost structures associated to that. As I mentioned, in March, there will be an opportunity for new board members or newer board members. We even have some newer board members that may have not had an opportunity to visit Eastern yet. They will be hosting a visit and brunch out at their center in March, and it's a great opportunity for board members and certainly any board member really that would like to go. And as there's been some more recent renovations, it'd be a great opportunity to go see some of those classrooms.
Do you have the specific day?
I don't have the date.
Okay.
I don't know. Dr. Lee, did that date get shared at all? No, I'll have that for you at the next meeting, and certainly you can get that on your calendar early enough.
It's going to be a Saturday, I believe, right?
It's a Sunday. It's a Sunday, yeah. Yeah, it's a couple hours over Sunday. Little orientation for newest board members, and then just some tours around. There was one registration for public comment.
She had to leave early, Dr. David Heiser.
Okay. And is there any correspondence? Did she leave any note or anything?
No.
Okay, all right. Any other correspondence? I don't believe
No.
there is. Okay. Is there anything else in terms of discussion the board would like to engage in? Okay. We don't need a motion. You can just slap your gavel down and that closes it. No formality on that needed. All right, thank you, everyone.